Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to episode 2 of the Groovy Podcast. Today is the 28th of May, and I'm Peter Lebrett, podcasting from merry old England. Today, I have Jennifer and Allison with me, the people behind the GR8 Ladies Initiative to support women in the Groovy ecosystem. Thank you for joining me, ladies. So, how are you both?
Pretty good.
Excellent. And Jennifer, still with us?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so as usual, going to go through some news items first, and then we'll do the sort of shortish interview afterwards. So I've actually just come back from Kiev in the Ukraine and survived. So I would just like to say that it was a great conference. The people were very nice there. We got a tour done for us by the conference for the speakers. And, you know, it's a really lovely country, and it is perfectly safe to go to Kiev. So if you'd like to visit, definitely worth one. And I really hope and pray that now that they have a new president, that things are going to go much better for them. So what about the news in the Groovy world? So Grails 2.4 was released this week. And this pretty much, we've talked about the release candidates earlier. So you've got Spring 4, you've got Groovy 2.3, I believe, yes, and static compilation and various other things. We talked about that before. What was quite interesting with the announcement of Grails 2.4 was that the next version definitely will be Grails 3. So we've been waiting a long time for this. You know, when I was working as part of the Grails team, I was part of the roadmaps for Grails 2, for Grails 3, and you know, we started 2 or 3 years ago. But now it's finally coming, and it's going to be based on Spring Boot. So Spring Boot is getting a lot of love at the moment, a lot of interest. I want to talk about a company using it who've been public about that. So that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the plugin system and how that fits in with Spring Boot. And for my, my own personal favorite feature now is the Maven integration, but only because I've just written about it. But the Maven 2.4 plugin for Grails has seen significant improvements, especially for the multiple project support, and it doesn't require you to use Grails 2.4. So you can use version 2.4 of the plugin with Grails 2.2 or 2.3. So if you're using Maven, definitely check that out. There was also news of the problems, the dangers with a super fast JSON parser. I'm going to add the link to the show notes. But somebody who's involved in JSON, GSON, the Google JSON serializer, had been taking note of the various performance benchmarks around the Groovy JSON parser and Jackson and Boost. I think it is the other JSON parser. Anyway, he made the very good point that those libraries currently seem to suffer from collisions. So they use a map-based system, but it doesn't have collision detection. So if you're using these libraries to serialize and deserialize JSON on the web, then you are potentially open to attacks from malicious people, because they can give you data that will force those collisions and effectively start a denial of service attack on your server. So well worth having a read. Gives an interesting perspective on, exactly what are the costs associated with absolute speed. Now, another piece of news, apparently Netflix are re-architecting Asgard. So Asgard is their cloud deployment tool for Amazon. It helps you manage deployments to Amazon, and they use it internally. And that's one of their applications based on Grails. They are doing Asgard 2, and I'm going to provide a link which goes to GitHub, where one of the developers there, Dan Woods, he explains what they're planning for Asgard 2 and why they're switching to Spring Boot. Basically, they'd love to use Grails, but what they really want is the stuff that's coming with Grails 3, which isn't there yet. But Spring Boot allows you to take some of the great things from Grails, such as the GSP parser and GORM, and use them in Spring Boot. So that's, again, well worth a read and may give you a hint as to what's coming with Grails 3. Very small piece of news, Grooscript has just reached version 0.5. So this is a nice little project that will translate Groovy into JavaScript. So you don't have to write any JavaScript yourself if you don't particularly like it. Sort of similar to the way that Google's GWT translated Java to JavaScript. But this time it's Groovy, which is much nicer. Grails mailing lists, they are going. I think they have already been closed, in fact. So the ones on Codehouse no longer exist. So now you should be using a Google group, Grails Dev Discuss. I'll add a link in the show notes to talk about Grails. Generally around the development of Grails, what features you want added, or how to implement something for Grails itself, or plugins and such. But if you have like straightforward questions, like on how to use Grails or how to solve a particular problem, you should use StackOverflow and use the Grails tag. So there have been some complaints, obviously, about this. I think it's maybe more manageable. We'll see how it goes. I mean, certainly StackOverflow is great for asking questions, especially when people get the answers. And, this is what the Grails team will be looking at. So you should definitely be switching to StackOverflow at this point. And I just want to end with one item related to last week, the last episode, in fact, which wasn't last week, about Vagrant and how it supports Windows guest VMs. So you can run a Windows virtual machine on your Mac or your Linux or your Windows and use it for testing. So this is very promising for all of us on Linux or Mac. So I did mention that Windows does require a license, but one of our listeners pointed out that Microsoft now offers free time-limited Windows VMs for VirtualBox, for VMware Workstation, and so forth. So if it is just for testing, you can grab one of those, and that's free. So you can test on Windows. So looking forward to giving that a try at some point. That's the end of the news. Quick little bit on conferences. Spring 1 2GX schedule, preliminary schedule is up. I'll have a link for that on the show notes. And GR8Conf Europe is next week. So if you're going, I shall see you there. And don't forget GR8Conf US, which is at the end of July. Okay, so on to the interview. So, hi, Jennifer, Allison. Sorry to keep you waiting there. So were there any particular news items that, or any other pieces of news that have piqued your interest recently?
I guess with the Great Conf Europe, we're actually sending Jackie Helgeson. She'll be there, and we'll have Great Lady stickers and some other things if anyone wants to say hi to her.
Okay, cool. So actually, if you email me her name, and I'll add it to the show notes and mention that she'll be there at GR8Conf EU. That'd be great. Cool. So, Jennifer, Allison, can you just, to get us going, can you tell us a little about yourself, such as where you're based, what work you do, your background in IT, and so forth? So if we can start with Jennifer.
Okay, so my name is Jen Strader. I'm a software engineer at a company called Altegra Health. I work for their healthcare communications division, and we're located in St. Louis Park, Minnesota. It's one of the suburbs of Minneapolis. My programming experience started with those very horrible HTML sites, you know, those ones with the flashing graphics and the marquees.
Yeah, I miss the blink tag. I really do.
Yeah. Then so when I was about 16, I went to a math and science boarding school, and I had to take a class in Java. So that's kind of where I started. For a while, I put it on the back burner. I actually pursued an undergraduate degree in neuroscience, and got about halfway through that when I went back to computer science. I took an elective, decided I liked that way more, and I haven't looked back since. After college, I took my first job. I was working in, I was hired to do Flash work in ActionScript, but that business quickly died down. So I started picking up some PHP in a framework called Symfony. Through that. Yeah, then let's see. So I got to work on some great things with them. Worked on an R&D project. MongoDB, RabbitMQ, did some mobile work with them. Then about a year ago, I started looking for something new. I came across this posting at Altegra and thought I'd give Groovy and Grails a try.
Ah, excellent. I have to say I completely understand the whole university thing, because I went to university thinking I would do physics. And then after a year, I was like, okay, I will do chemistry. I don't really like that physics thing. I ended up doing chemical engineering at the end of it, and then ended up getting a job doing software, which had kind of been my hobby at the time. So, yeah, I can kind of understand wanting to switch halfway through a course. Although actually from the outside, neuroscience sounds really interesting, but probably in small doses. Okay, cool. So, right. So you really did a lot of. You went from sort of front end work to back end work.
Yes.
Did you have any experience with Rails? Just out of interest. No Rails. Okay. Cool. Thanks, Jennifer. And Allison, how about you?
Well, I have a bachelor's in math and a master's in computer science. I started my software development career during my grad school as a C++, Java developer. After grad school, my first job was Python and Django. Currently, I work with Groovy, Grails, and Dropwizard. Right now, I work at implementing a lot of REST APIs as Dropwizard services.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you. So I've. How do you compare sort of that C stuff with Java and then with Python? In fact, did you move on to Python mostly from work that you'd done with C?
What do you mean, like similar projects or?
Well, it's because when I was introduced to Python through C projects, so people were developing core functionality in C and C++, but allowing you to script it with Python. And I find a lot of people that do C also do some Python as well.
It was really completely separate.
Okay.
I as an independent study, I learned Python one semester at school, and looking for work after school, I wasn't specifically looking for Python. I was just looking at jobs that I had experience in the language, and Python is what I landed on. And I really came to really love the dynamic nature. I'm really happy with dynamic languages. I'm happier with Groovy than Python. I especially love being able to type things, because in Python I always wanted to really type check right at the beginning of the functions, and it's like, well, if you want to type check, why are you using an untyped language?
Yeah, it's one of the great questions of software development, certainly at the moment, and for a while actually. So yeah, I'm kind of relaxed. I feel that there are certain situations which are better for typing. I feel across like across interface boundaries and that kind of thing. You know, for method signatures, I think as you were alluding to, typing is great to ensure that what you're getting in is what you expect. But you know, I kind of quite like dynamic languages as well. Very comfortable with them. So yeah, have either of you been using any of the static features of Groovy 2 or later?
No, not yet.
No.
Okay, it's definitely worth a little try because you can add it to you know, possibly classes where interact via interfaces that, you know, two different teams and working on two sides of the interaction between these classes, and you can ensure that everyone knows what is expected. So I love the IDE integration. So if you haven't tried it, just whack @type checked onto your classes and see what the IDE does for you. I think it's a very cool feature. I'm quite interested to find out who is using it extensively in projects. Okay, so let's forget the dynamic static discussion and let's go on to things that are, I think are of more interest to you guys. So you started the GR8 Leaders Initiative. What prompted you to start it?
Well, I often used to ignore gender disparity in my field. It just didn't seem like it really affected me much. But then I went to the Grace Hopper Celebration of Women in Computing conference last October, and my whole viewpoint changed. I realized that there was a vibrant community of tech women out there, although it was fragmented. A few women here and a few women there still adds up to a lot of women in tech. It was amazing to realize, though, that even I had stereotypes of not expecting to have tech conversations when surrounded by women. So Jen and I talked about gender disparity in our local software development community and decided we could do something about it. We had both attended many local women in tech events through an organization called Girls in Tech, but we had found that a lot of the tech-related women weren't actually software developers. Mm-hmm. Also, at our local Groovy meetup, we were routinely the only women there. So we decided to bring Groovy Grails education to women in the Minneapolis, Minnesota area. Our audience so far has been otherwise tech-related women with either some or no programming experience.
Okay. And are you sort of, what sort of numbers are you getting? Are you getting many people coming? Is there sort of significant audience?
We haven't done an independent workshop yet. We have one coming up on June 28th, but so far we've done little presentations at existing conferences. Yeah. And so I think, Jen, we had about 8 people at the She's Geeky conference, right?
Something like that. And then we did Women Tech Makers too.
Yeah.
The Google-sponsored conference.
And we had a few more people there, and that was about 50-50 men and women.
Okay.
Yeah, probably 10 people in the audience there.
So what are your, do you have specific hopes for the initiative and what it will achieve? And what do you see as the main challenges?
Okay, sure. I'll take this one. I guess it seems a little strange, but our main goal is to not need great ladies anymore. It's not an easy task, though. Many different branches of computing have been combating this for years. The Anita Borg Institute, they're the organization that runs the Grace Hopper Conference and a lot of other initiatives for women in tech. They are constantly doing research into why the numbers have dropped. It's actually the number of women in tech has dropped over the last 30 years.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, at least in the U.S.
Numbers were low, but
yeah.
And that's specific to the U.S.
I know that their research was in the U.S.
Those figures, yeah.
The graduation rates between about the late 80s and today has dropped significantly.
Okay.
Yeah. And so there were two main things that we took out of that, or out of that experience that we kind of want to try and tackle in the Groovy community. The first is what we call the pipeline problem, and that's just having more women in tech, and that's where our education piece comes in. So we're going to try and work on things like this Great Workshops initiative to teach women, more women to code. The second idea is burnout and drop-off. Everybody knows tech is a demanding field, and the burnout's pretty high. Even then, the rate of women dropping out of the workforce is even higher than men, even after you account for things like parenting and childcare. Mm-hmm. So we're to tackle that, we're trying to create this network. Because I know there's one woman here, one woman there, and I felt kind of estranged being the one woman. But having Allison and other women that I can talk to at other companies is definitely a good supportive network.
Okay, and so does GR8 Ladies encompass, say, forums and a social network, or is it mainly focused on those workshops at the moment? What does somebody getting involved with GR8 Ladies experience? What are their points of entry? What's available to them?
Well, we've had a couple meetups where we've used Twitter to we have, I don't know, 100 followers now, Jen, and we've used Twitter to get the word out about. So we've had 2 meetups, and we've met some women from from St. Cloud, which is another city in Minnesota, mm-hmm. And then we've had these workshops where we educate women, and that's about it so far.
Okay.
Yeah, we're really still getting started. I have a lot of ideas for what I want to do. I have started, so we've got the Twitter account, Facebook, LinkedIn group. I haven't gone too far into Google Plus yet, but definitely once we get rolling, those are things I'd like to implement.
Okay, and is a good entry point for people, or certainly women that are interested in at least reaching out to other ladies in the Groovy community, is the website greatladies.org sort of a good entry point?
Sure, that's our. It's a landing page, so it has links to all of our other forms of communication as well.
Yeah. Excellent. So yes, if you're listening and you're interested in the Great Ladies initiative and getting involved in that community, I'll put a link to the website on the show notes, but it's gr8ladies.org. Okay, so it's kind of a difficult topic, I feel myself. So, but do you feel that in general the tech community is friendly and welcoming to women? Is that an issue, or do you feel that it's mainly down to women just not many coming through from school and college and so forth?
I've found that the community is generally pretty welcoming. I had a little more trouble in school kind of breaking in, I felt, to that atmosphere, but in the work community, I have felt very supported and welcome. It can be definitely intimidating to be the only woman in the room, but that's not anyone's fault.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I have to say I've read blog posts about sort of thinking about the woman's perspective. There are various stories that come out, but somebody wrote a blog post along the lines of, you may think that individual situation is not a big deal, but imagine if that's like happening every day or every week or so forth. So, I mean, my perspective is I'm white, I'm male. I went to private school, so I'm part of the establishment and privileged. So I can't really speak to these at all. I definitely have a very different perspective of the tech community. So it's very interesting to hear what other people's experiences are, especially if they're like women or ethnic minorities or anyone that's not dominant in the tech field. I feel it's detrimental to the tech community to have such, this one dominant group, which is still white men. I don't know if you feel that as well. Does it not? Is it? Do you feel a lack of richness and variety in the community through the lack of significant groups of people that aren't white and male?
Well, interesting, just kind of as a sidebar, as a grad student, it was predominantly Indian men. Who, like, I think maybe 80% of my program was Indian.
Okay, yeah.
And so, so it still surprises me to hear that the community is predominantly white men, because I'm just used to it being, international students. Yeah.
Yeah, I still feel that, at conferences and the like, it's probably still largely white men. But yes, you're absolutely right. There are lots of...
In my current community, it is predominantly white men. So I'm not disagreeing.
Right. Thank you. Phew. But yeah, no, it varies from country to country as well. But I think a lot of reports have been along the lines that it's still male and white is the dominant one, and I feel that's detrimental. So I'm very supportive of any initiatives to try to broaden the reach and get more people involved. So moving on to the GR8 workshops, which is, I think you mentioned, is a follow-on part of your GR8 Leaders Initiative. What's the idea behind the GR8 workshops specifically? I assume it's short courses, but are they just designed to be available for everyone? Who can access the material, and so on and so forth? What is the GR8 workshops about?
Okay, so the Great Workshops initiative is intended to be a free workshop, usually about a day long, to, in this case, bring women into tech, but can be used for bringing anyone into the Groovy community. Let's see, it's really going to be modeled after the Rails Bridge and Closure Bridge programs that are out there. We've been kind of definitely looking for them for inspiration. Both of those groups have been in Minneapolis before, and we're getting a lot of help from them as well.
Okay, cool. And Closure Bridge and Rails Bridge, are they specifically targeted at women in those communities, or again, are they sort of more general, available to everybody?
I think they started as aimed at women, or at least they have women-specific ones here, but on their websites they cite any diversity, or bring any diversity into their specific languages and frameworks.
Okay. So so the focus is currently the workshops, which are they training workshops, or are they more a get a feel for the ecosystem and a feel for what you can do? Where does it aim at? Is it more of that training and introduction, or hey, this is what you can do, have a play, if you'd like to learn more, feel free to go this direction?
Sure, it's a little bit of both. We were talking about having two different tracks, so one's going to be completely for beginners who's never had any programming experience before, so they can get in right at the beginning, but then if someone has had experience in other languages, it's more about learning what you can do with Groovy compared to in the other elements of the ecosystem.
Okay, cool. So I do a talk which is Groovy for Java developers, and my approach is especially as it only fits into like 50 minutes to an hour, is, hey, these are the things that you can use Groovy for without, throwing Java out. So, and I think that approach works really well. And for anyone listening, I've sort of tried to become involved with GR8 workshops, so I'm definitely very supportive of this idea. I think I would love to see more training material on Groovy that's just available for everyone to use. So hopefully we can get more going. I have a big thanks to Allison and Jennifer for starting this. So you guys have your first call. You said first workshop is the 28th of July?
June.
28th of June, in Minneapolis?
Minneapolis.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. And are the details going to be available via gr8ladies.org or elsewhere?
gr8ladies.org, as well as Twin Cities Geekettes.
Okay, I'll have to get that link off you afterwards.
We are looking for anyone who wants to volunteer to either speak or be a general teaching assistant.
Okay, cool. So hopefully that will get out. Some of our listeners and viewers will hear and see that and get in touch with you. So I definitely encourage you to do so, even if you're a little bit nervous about, teaching someone, or you don't feel that you have enough experience. Everyone starts somewhere, and I've definitely had, I started somewhere. It's important to actually just go try it out. People are always thankful for sort of any help and assistance, and if you sort of know a medium amount about Groovy, I think that's more than enough probably for this. What do you think, ladies?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't have as much experience as a lot of other people, and I'm just trying to get out there, start somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best ways. And hopefully, actually, GR8 Ladies can turn into not just workshops for Groovy, but also workshops for people giving training and speaking about the language, and helping to get more people involved. So definitely good luck with that. I will try to stay involved as well, and we'll see where that goes. So thank you once again for joining me, Jennifer and Allison. It was great to have you on. It's really great to talk about these topics that just aren't just about the technology, but people are important as well. I'd love to make that point in some of my talks. So would you like to give any final shout-outs, or throw out some Twitter, Facebook email addresses, or should I just point people at gr8ladies.org?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jen.
Oh, sorry. The website's definitely a good place. We have all of our Twitter, Facebook, and other accounts linked there.
Okay, excellent. And one final question. Is it gr8ladies.org or is it greatladies.org?
I kind of liked the pun of Great Ladies, so that's what I've been going with.
Excellent. So we'll go with greatladies.org. So, to be honest, I have no idea what the conference is supposed to be called, whether it's GreatConf or GR8Conf. I think it's GreatConf. Excellent. So thank you very much. So that's it for this episode. I will try to arrange another one in the not too distant future, hopefully sometime in June. We'll see what we can do. I look forward to your feedback. You can potentially add it to as YouTube comments, or possibly on the Google Plus events page. Definitely interested in any news items that people want that think is worth mentioning in the podcast, or if you just want to cover a particular topic, or if you've got any suggestions for people to invite for interview, just let me know. You can contact me via @pledbrook on Twitter, or p.ledbrook@cacoethes.co.uk, which I will put in the show notes because no one's going to know how to spell it. Okay, so thanks very much once more, and hopefully catch up with you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for having us.